The conference room felt unusually crowded. Beatrice sat at the head of the table, her silver hair pulled back severely. Talia Winwood occupied the seat to her right, tablet and leather portfolio arranged precisely before her. A man in a charcoal suit introduced himself as corporate counsel, another as private security consultant for the Winwood estate. My files seemed pathetically inadequate amid their sleek devices and stern expressions. "Please sit, Adrian," Beatrice said. Her voice carried none of its usual warmth. I lowered myself into a chair, fighting the urge to apologize, though I wasn't sure for what. Talia spoke first. "Following our conversation last night, I had my team conduct an expedited audit of all invoices, maintenance records, and inventory reports across my properties for the past 9 months. She slid several printed documents toward me. "Are you familiar with these purchase orders?" I examined them carefully. "These are for the replacement of climate control systems at your Seattle and Vermont properties. I wasn't involved in these approvals." "Exactly," Talia said. "They were authorized by Director Ward after your oversight was restricted. Do you notice anything unusual about the specifications?" I studied the documents more closely. "These are industrial-grade systems. Your properties use custom residential units that integrate with the architectural features." I frowned. "And the pricing is extremely high." Talia nodded. "Now look at these." She pushed forward photographs showing installation work at both properties. These were taken by my caretaker staff during installation. I felt a chill as I examined them. These aren't new systems. These are refurbished units. You can tell from the connection ports and serial number formatting. I looked up, but the invoices are for brand new custom installations. The security consultant leaned forward. "We tracked the original units. They were removed, transported to a warehouse in Henderson, and later sold to a luxury development in Arizona. There's more," Talia continued. "Art pieces, antique fixtures, custom furniture, all replaced for maintenance, then diverted through a network of specialized resellers, always with paperwork showing client approval that I never gave. The total misappropriation across just the Winwood properties exceeds $2 million, the lawyer added. Beatrice's hands trembled slightly as she steepled them. "We've verified similar patterns across 12 other client portfolios." The realization struck me. The new vendors, the maintenance companies, the restoration specialists, they're all connected to shell companies that funnel profits back to interests controlled by Nathaniel Ward. Talia finished. "He's been systematically replacing valuable items from his clients' properties with cheaper alternatives, selling the originals, and pocketing the difference while charging premium rates for the replacements." "But why target me specifically?" I asked. Beatrice slid a folder toward me. "Your detailed property reports. The ones Nathaniel replaced with standardized checklists." She opened it to reveal my old documentation style: comprehensive inventories, condition assessments, maintenance histories. "Your system would have made his scheme impossible to execute. He needed you sidelined." "The client complaints were fabricated," Talia added. "We've confirmed with the supposed complainants. None had any issues with your management style." I felt dizzy with vindication and horror. "The damaged greenhouse at the Harlow estate. Likely deliberate," Beatrice confirmed. "When you noticed the replacement fixtures at the coastal property, Nathaniel must have realized you were getting too close to discovering the scheme." The conference room door opened. One of the suited men from Nathaniel's office entered, nodding to the security consultant. "We've secured the office and electronic devices. Local authorities have been notified." An icy silence followed his exit. My mind raced through months of incidents, previously confusing actions now making terrible sense. "What happens now?" I finally asked. Beatrice's expression softened slightly. "That depends partly on you, Adrian. We need someone to help identify exactly what's been taken, replaced, or modified across multiple properties. Someone who knows these homes intimately. Someone the clients trust," Talia added meaningfully. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt sick imagining how many treasured items, many with deep personal significance to my clients, had been stolen and sold to strangers. Over the next 3 days, I barely slept as we untangled Nathaniel's elaborate scheme. Working alongside forensic accountants and inventory specialists, I identified dozens of substitutions across multiple properties that would have gone undetected without intimate knowledge of the originals. Hand-blown glass light fixtures from Venice replaced with mass-produced imitations. Custom walnut bookshelves swapped for stained pine. Historical doorknobs and hinges exchanged for modern reproductions. Some replacements were so skillfully executed that only someone who had originally selected or maintained the items would notice the difference. "Your attention to detail is remarkable," commented the lead investigator as I identified a replaced antique coffee table by the distinctive grain pattern missing from its substitute. "These aren't just expensive things," I explained. "They're pieces of people's lives." While I worked, Nathaniel remained under house arrest. His passport surrendered. The investigation expanded to properties beyond our management company as authorities discovered connections to similar schemes at his previous employers. On the fourth day, Beatrice requested my presence in her office. I found her looking exhausted but resolute behind her desk. "I'm retiring," she announced without preamble. "Sooner than planned, but necessary under the circumstances. The board has approved a restructuring plan." My heart sank. Restructuring usually meant job cuts, and despite my vindication, I expected to be among the casualties. "We're dissolving the current management structure," Beatrice continued, confirming my fears, "and creating 3 specialized divisions: property preservation, client relations, and security operations." She slid a document across her desk. "I'm offering you leadership of the entire client portfolio, with oversight of all 3 divisions. Full autonomy to rebuild our approach according to your vision." I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. "You want me to run the company?" "I want you to transform it," she corrected. Nathaniel was right about one thing. This industry is changing, but his vision of standardization and efficiency at the expense of personalization was fundamentally wrong. "Your approach, treating each property as unique and worthy of individual care, that's our true competitive advantage." My fingers trembled as I reached for the document. The compensation figure made me blink twice. "Talia Winwood has already agreed to extend her contract for 5 years if you accept," Beatrice added. 7 other major clients have indicated the same. They trust you, Adrian. Not just with their properties, but with their privacy and their personal spaces. I thought of Nathaniel's accusation, emotional manipulation. What he'd failed to understand was that genuine care couldn't be faked. My clients recognized the difference between authentic attention and calculated engagement. "I need time to consider," I said, though my mind was already racing with possibilities. Beatrice nodded. "Of course, but there's one more thing." She handed me another folder. "The board authorized recovery operations for the misappropriated items. We've located several significant pieces, including the Harlow greenhouse components. I thought you might want to oversee their return personally." The folder contained shipping manifests, auction records, and private sale documents, a paper trail of Nathaniel's betrayal, but also a map to reclaiming what had been lost. I left Beatrice's office in a daze, the job offer and recovery plans clutched to my chest. Passing through the main workspace, I noticed Penny clearing out Nathaniel's office, her expression grim as she boxed his belongings. She looked up as I approached. "Is it true? About the art and antiques?" I nodded. "He told everyone you were unstable," she whispered, "that your attachment to clients was unprofessional and dangerous to the company." She placed a framed award into the box with unusual care. I believed him. Most people did. I acknowledged without bitterness. "How did you know about what he was doing?" "I didn't," I admitted. "Not really. I just knew something wasn't right." As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Bail hearing tomorrow. Lawyers say easy release with proper financial arrangements. This misunderstanding will be cleared up soon. NW." I stared at the message, astonished by his continued confidence, despite overwhelming evidence. Then another text arrived from the same number. "Might be wise to clarify your role in all this. Several transactions have your initial approval codes. Unfortunate if authorities misinterpreted that involvement." My blood froze. Approval codes could be forged, systems manipulated. I'd been so focused on identifying stolen items that I hadn't considered how Nathaniel might implicate me in his scheme. Before I could process this threat, my phone rang. "Talia Winwood." "I've been informed of some concerning developments," she said without greeting. "Are you somewhere private where we can speak?" I ducked into an empty meeting room. "Yes. My security team intercepted communications suggesting Ward plans to claim you were a knowing participant in his operation. He's prepared documentation showing your involvement." My legs weakened. I sank into a chair. "Fabricated documentation. Obviously," Talia agreed, "but potentially convincing to investigators without context. He's quite methodical." The room seemed to tilt. "After everything, Nathaniel still held power to destroy my reputation and possibly my freedom. What should I do? I asked. Come to my office, Talia replied. My team has been building a counterintelligence file since our first conversation. There are aspects of this situation neither Beatrice nor the authorities have yet uncovered. What aspects? This isn't Nathaniel's first operation, or his most ambitious. Her voice hardened. I've tracked similar patterns across 3 companies and 2 continents. He's been doing this for nearly a decade, always disappearing before discovery, always with a convenient scapegoat left behind. And I'm to be his scapegoat this time, I realized. He certainly planned it that way, Talia confirmed, but he made a critical miscalculation, which was, her voice became eerily calm. He stole from me, from my homes, and then he threatened someone I consider an ally. I recalled rumors about Talia's background before her tech success, whispers about government contracts and security expertise that went beyond normal business operations. I don't understand what you're suggesting, I said carefully. I'm not suggesting anything over an unsecured line, she replied. Just come to my office, bring the recovery folder Beatrice gave you, and Adrian, don't inform anyone else about this conversation. The call ended, leaving me clutching the phone, caught between vindication and new terror. Outside the meeting room window, life continued normally. Staff chatting by the coffee machine, maintenance crews arriving for afternoon shifts, a delivery person checking in at reception, none aware that beneath the surface of our ordered world, currents of betrayal, threat, and potential retribution swirled like dark waters. My phone buzzed again with another text from Nathaniel. Consider your position carefully. Only one of us needs to take the fall here. I have resources you can't imagine. Choose wisely. I stared at his words, the audacity of his threats stunning me. After stealing from our clients, destroying my professional reputation, and now threatening to frame me, he still believed he held the power. Perhaps he did, unless Talia Winwood knew something I didn't. I gathered my belongings and the recovery folder, then headed for the elevator. Whatever waited at Talia's office would determine not just my future, but whether justice would prevail or Nathaniel would once again slip away, leaving destruction in his wake. Talia's private office occupied the entire top floor of an understated building downtown. No company name marked the entrance, just a discreet security checkpoint where my identity was verified before I was escorted to an elevator requiring keycard access. When the doors opened, I entered a space unlike any executive suite I'd visited. No pretentious art or excessive furnishings, just clean lines, natural light, and walls lined with monitors displaying data streams and security feeds. Talia stood before a sprawling digital display, her attention fixed on scrolling information. She didn't turn when I entered. Nathaniel Ward, born Nathan Wilcox, she said, gesturing toward the screen where a timeline expanded with photos, documents, and news clippings. Changed his name after his first reinvention 12 years ago. I moved closer, studying images of a younger Nathaniel in various settings, different haircuts, sometimes glasses, sometimes clean-shaven, but always the same calculating eyes. How long have you been tracking him? I asked. Since he targeted one of my former colleagues 3 years ago. She swiped the display, revealing newspaper headlines about embezzlement charges against a woman named Diana Sullivan. She managed properties for high-net-worth individuals in Vancouver. Nathaniel worked under her for 11 months before evidence of financial misconduct mysteriously pointed to her. By the time investigators cleared her name, he had vanished with millions, and her professional reputation was destroyed. My throat tightened. And you think he planned the same for me? I know he did. Talia handed me a tablet displaying internal company emails. These were recovered from his encrypted accounts. He began building a digital trail implicating you within weeks of his arrival. I scrolled through messages showing my signature on authorizations I'd never seen, backdated approvals for vendor changes, and careful documentation suggesting my knowledge of the substitution scheme. How did he access my credentials? I whispered. He didn't need to. A new voice entered the conversation. A woman with close-cropped gray hair stepped from an adjoining room. He created parallel systems that mimicked authentic approvals. Talia nodded toward her. This is Mira, cybersecurity specialist and another of Nathaniel's previous targets. Mira's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held unmistakable intensity. 7 years ago, I managed network security for a private banking firm. Nathaniel, calling himself Neil Watson, then orchestrated a breach that transferred funds from client accounts while leaving evidence suggesting my involvement. I spent 2 years rebuilding my life after that. How many others? I asked. At least 5 we've confirmed, Talia replied. Always the same pattern. He infiltrates organizations managing valuable assets, identifies an ethical employee with strong client relationships, systematically undermines their position while building his scheme, then frames them when discovery becomes inevitable. The magnitude of his operations stunned me. But how does he keep escaping consequences? Mira laughed without humor. Money, lots of it, hidden in international accounts. Enough to make bail, hire premier defense attorneys, create new identities, and start over elsewhere. Until now, Talia added, her voice hardening, because this time he made 3 critical errors. She moved to another screen, bringing up new information. First, he targeted my properties, not knowing I've been documenting his methods. Second, he underestimated your attention to detail and client relationships. And third, she paused, something dangerous flickering in her eyes. He threatened someone under my protection after I'd already begun dismantling his operation. Another specialist joined us, introducing himself simply as Grant. He pulled up financial records showing elaborate networks of transactions. We've traced his hidden accounts, Grant explained. The money trails from previous operations, the offshore holdings, the shell corporations that facilitated the resale of stolen items, everything. How is that possible? I asked. If authorities haven't managed to track him through multiple operations? Because authorities follow legal protocols and procedural constraints, Talia interrupted. My team doesn't share those limitations, and we've had years to prepare while watching him establish his pattern. The implications of her statement hung in the air. Whatever resources Talia commanded clearly extended beyond normal corporate capabilities. What exactly are you proposing? I asked carefully. Justice, she replied simply, but administered in a way that ensures he can never restart elsewhere. Not punishment, prevention. She outlined a strategy so meticulously crafted it took my breath away. Not illegal, not violent, but devastatingly effective in its precision. You've prepared all this for years without knowing if he would ever target you directly, I realized. I protect what's mine, Talia said. My privacy, my properties, my people. Nathaniel threatened all 3. She fixed me with a penetrating look. The question is whether you're willing to participate. This ends one way or another, but your involvement would make certain aspects more elegant. I thought of Nathaniel's smug confidence as he dismantled my career. His calculated theft of treasured items from clients who trusted us. His casual threat to frame me for his crimes. What do you need from me? I asked. The next morning, I entered the judicial building for Nathaniel's bail hearing with Beatrice beside me. We found seats near the back, watching as his attorney, a polished man in an expensive suit, conferred confidently with his client. Nathaniel looked remarkably composed for someone facing serious charges. When he spotted me, he had the audacity to offer a small, knowing smile. The message was clear. He expected to walk free today. The proceedings began routinely. Charges read, arguments for flight risk presented. Then, something shifted. The prosecutor received a message, conferred with colleagues, and requested an unexpected recess. When proceedings resumed 30 minutes later, everything had changed. The prosecutor approached the bench with new documents. The judge's expression darkened as she reviewed them. In light of new evidence suggesting extensive financial resources hidden overseas and multiple identity documents discovered in the defendant's possession, the judge announced, bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. Nathaniel's confident demeanor crumbled. He whispered urgently to his attorney, who appeared equally shocked by this turn of events. As Nathaniel was led away, our eyes met briefly. This time, I was the one who offered a small smile. Outside the courthouse, Talia waited in her car. Phase 1 complete, she said as I slid into the passenger seat. The financial records Grant uncovered have been anonymously provided to prosecutors in 3 jurisdictions. His hidden resources are being frozen as we speak. And his attorney just received evidence of Nathaniel's previous identities and victims. He's reconsidering his representation as we speak. Over the next 2 weeks, Nathaniel's carefully constructed world collapsed with stunning speed. Former victims, emboldened by his detention, came forward with testimonies of his previous schemes. Prosecutors in multiple jurisdictions filed additional charges. Evidence mysteriously emerged, connecting his various identities and operations across years. Meanwhile, I worked with Talia's recovery team to locate and return stolen items to their rightful owners. The joy of returning Mrs. Lynn's grandmother's jade figurines, watching Mr. Harlow run his fingers over his recovered antique chess set, seeing the Kincaid children's delight at the restoration of their treehouse. These moments healed something broken inside me. 3 weeks after his arrest, I received permission to visit Nathaniel in detention. He looked diminished in his jumpsuit. The confident executive vanished. "Why are you here?" he asked, suspicious and hostile. "To return something that belongs to you." I placed a small flash drive on the table between us. "A copy of all the evidence against you, including items not yet presented to prosecutors." His eyes narrowed. "Is this some kind of trap?" "Just information," I replied, "about how thoroughly your operation has been exposed, about how every hidden account is now frozen, about how each stolen item is being meticulously cataloged and returned, about how your previous victims have formed a coalition to ensure your prosecution." "Talia Winwood," he muttered. "This is her doing. This is the consequence of your choices." I corrected. "You called my client relationships emotional manipulation, but you never understood the fundamental difference between manipulation and genuine care. I built trust by valuing what mattered to my clients. You destroyed trust by seeing only what you could take from them." His facade finally cracked. "You have no idea what it takes to succeed in this world. Sentiment is for fools. Every advantage must be leveraged." "And yet here we sit," I observed quietly. "You leveraged every advantage, while I simply did my job with integrity." I stood to leave, but paused. "The investigators found something interesting in your warehouse. Custom brass door handles from the Winwood summer home, the ones you replaced with cheap reproductions. They were manufactured by an artisan who died 20 years ago. Talia's grandmother commissioned them specially. They feature a tiny dragonfly design that appears nowhere else in the world." His expression revealed nothing, but I continued anyway. "When Talia was a child, that dragonfly design became her secret game, finding all 18 handles throughout the house. After her grandmother died, those handles became her most tangible connection to those memories." I leaned closer. "That's what you stole, Nathaniel. Not brass fixtures worth a few $1,000s. You stole irreplaceable connections to people's lives." As I turned to leave, he called after me. "This isn't over. I still have resources you haven't found." I smiled sadly. "No, Nathaniel, you don't." 6 months later, I stood in the newly renovated headquarters of what was now called Heritage Stewardship Partners. The company had been completely restructured around my philosophy of individualized property care. Our client retention rate was at historic highs, and former clients were returning after hearing of our transformation. Nathaniel had accepted a plea deal facing evidence too overwhelming to fight. His conviction included not just the theft from our clients, but financial crimes spanning his previous identities. The judge's sentence, 17 years without possibility of early parole, reflected the calculated nature of his schemes and the multiple lives he had damaged. I had visited Diana Sullivan in Vancouver and Mira in Chicago, along with Nathaniel's other victims. Together, we created a verification network for the industry to prevent similar operators from establishing themselves elsewhere. On a crisp autumn morning, I welcomed a group of new property managers for their orientation. Looking at their eager faces, I shared the philosophy that would guide our work. The properties we manage are more than assets. They're vessels of memory and meaning. Our job isn't just preservation of physical spaces, but protection of what makes them significant to their owners. That requires genuine attention, not standardized procedures. After the session, Talia appeared in my office doorway. We had become not quite friends. She maintained too much privacy for that, but mutual respect had deepened into something approaching alliance. "The Henderson property acquisition is complete," she informed me, "and your recommendation for the renovation team has been approved." "Thank you for your trust," I replied. She studied me for a moment. "You never asked why I moved so aggressively against Nathaniel, why I had been tracking him for years before he targeted you." "I assumed it was because he stole from you. The dragonfly handles you mentioned to him," she said quietly. "My grandmother designed those for me after my parents died. I spent every summer with her in that house. When I gained enough wealth to purchase it decades later, finding those handles still in place felt like her presence welcoming me home." Her composed expression never wavered, but something in her eyes softened. "Some things, once stolen, leave wounds no financial compensation can heal." As she turned to leave, she added, "You were right about emotional connections, Adrian. They're only manipulation when they're fake. Your genuine care for what matters to your clients isn't weakness. It's your most valuable asset." After she left, I stood by my office window, overlooking the garden I'd planted behind our headquarters, roses, lavender, and native flowering plants that attracted hummingbirds. In the early evening light, I watched employees ending their day, greeting family members waiting outside, sharing stories of problems solved and properties protected. The final piece of our company transformation had been completed that morning, a new values statement etched in glass in our lobby. We don't just manage properties, we honor the lives they contain. Nathaniel's fundamental mistake wasn't his greed or even his criminal methods. It was his failure to understand that genuine care creates strength, not vulnerability. By dismissing my client relationships as emotional manipulation, he had overlooked the most powerful force in any business: authentic human connection. If you've stayed with me through this story, I want to thank you for listening. Stories like these remind us that integrity matters, that genuine care is never wasted, and that sometimes justice comes in unexpected forms. If this resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to hear more stories that explore the complexities of professional life and personal redemption. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you might have done in my position. Until next time, remember that the connections we build with care are always our greatest strength.